welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into something new coming out of Washington, H.R.708. It's called the SHIELD Against CCP Act.
That's right.
And our goal here really is to break down what this act, and specifically the working group it creates inside Homeland Security, is all about. We've got the bill text, so we'll be sticking close to that.
Yep. And the full name, Strategic Homeland Intelligence and Enforcement Legislation to Defend Against the CCP Act. Well, it doesn't leave much doubt about the focus, does it?
Not really. It's very direct.
It's specifically targeting, perceived threats linked to the Chinese Communist Party across a few key areas. It's quite explicit in naming the source, which is notable in itself for legislation.
Okay, so let's get into the main part, this new working group. The act says the Secretary of Homeland Security has to set this up within 180 days of enactment.
Which was back in March 2025.
Right, so pretty soon, actually. It's not a suggestion, it's a requirement.
Exactly. And the structure's laid out, too. There's a director appointed by the Secretary, reports directly to the Secretary.
That direct reporting line usually signals importance, doesn't it? Like, this isn't buried layers down.
Precisely. It suggests this is a high-priority initiative within DHS.
And staffing. It mentions needing sufficient staff, but one detail caught my eye. At least one person whose whole job is privacy law compliance.
Yeah, that is interesting, especially now with all the focus on data, surveillance,
It feels like they're trying to get ahead of potential concerns there.
It certainly looks like an attempt to build in safeguards, and it also mentions they can bring in detailees.
Ah, like experts on loan?
Yeah, people with specific expertise, maybe from the intelligence community or other federal agencies who can join temporarily, brings in specialized knowledge.
Okay, so let's talk duties. What's this group actually doing? The main thing seems to be examining, assessing, and reporting on DHS efforts against specific threats.
Right. Threats supposedly linked, again, to the CCP, and they break these down into categories.
What are the big ones?
Well, they list terrorist threats, cybersecurity threats, border and port security threats, and transportation security threats. Pretty broad buckets.
But then they get more specific about the methods they're worried about within those buckets, particularly concerning the CCP.
Exactly. So, for instance, under immigration, they mention concerns about identity theft, visa fraud.
Like exploiting the visa system.
Yeah, that, and also unlawful border crossings, human smuggling, trafficking. Essentially ways the immigration system could potentially be misused.
And the working group is meant to figure out how real that connection is and if DHS is doing enough.
That seems to be the task. Evaluating the threat and the response.
Then there's the economic angle.
Yeah.
Predatory economic and trade practices, that sounds like. Counterfeit goods.
Counterfeits, yeah. Pirated stuff, forced labor concerns, customs fraud, and a big one, theft of intellectual property and technology.
That IP theft impacts so many industries, doesn't it? It's not just one company losing out.
Absolutely. It touches on, America's technological edge, future jobs. Think about sensitive areas like AI or biotech development, and including forced labor links human rights to the security picture, too.
Okay, what else? Support for transnational criminal organizations.
Yeah, specifically mentioning those trafficking fentanyl, illicit drug precursors, other controlled substances.
So a direct link to the opioid crisis stuff we hear so much about.
It seems to be drawing that line, yes.
Yeah.
Suggesting a concern that the CCP might be directly or indirectly helping that flow of drugs across borders through mail, express shipping.
And the working group needs to dig into how much that's actually happening.
Right. Analyze the intelligence, the enforcement data, understand the connections.
And the last one here is about money support for illicit financial activity by Chinese money laundering organizations. Following the money trail.
Cleaning the profits from all those other activities you mentioned, disrupting that is key to making the whole enterprise less sustainable.
Okay, so they identify threats.
Yeah.
But they also have to look at DHS itself.
Yeah, big time. They need to account for DHS resources money, people currently fighting these specific threats.
Like an audit.
Sort of, yeah. And crucially, assess if those resources are being effective. Are the programs working? Is the money well spent?
And it says they should build on existing work, not reinvent the wheel.
Right. Look at evaluations already done by other parts of DHS. Efficiency seems to be a goal there. Avoid duplication.
They're also supposed to find the weak spots,
Yeah.
right? Gaps in DHS policies or processes.
Exactly. Where are the vulnerabilities? And then importantly, try to get different DHS offices and components working together better.
Break down the silos.
That's the idea. Foster cooperation for a more unified response. Fragmentation can really hamper things in big organizations like DHS.
Makes sense. What about information? Sharing intelligence?
Yep. Another key duty, they're supposed to review intel from partners, federal, state, local, tribal, territorial.
And the fusion centers. Remind us what those are again.
Ah, right. Fusion centers are basically hubs where different law enforcement and intel agencies at all levels can share information and collaborate. They're critical nodes.
So the working group taps into that network.
Yes, coordinates with DHS's own Office of Intelligence and Analysis to review info from those partners, and then also pushes relevant threat info back out to them.
It's a two-way street.
Essential for effective intelligence work, really.
Now, this isn't just happening in a vacuum inside DHS. There's oversight built in.
Oh, yeah. Annual reports are required for 5 years, going to key congressional committees.
And these reports detail the threats over the past year and what the working group has been up to.
That's it. And interestingly, they have to submit an unclassified version.
So the public can see it.
The unclassified part, yes. It'll be posted on the DHS website. That adds a layer of transparency.
And Congress gets briefed too.
Yep. After each report, the secretary briefs the committees on the findings, progress, any roadblocks. Plus, there's another check.
What's that?
The Controller General, that's the head of the Government Accountability Office, GAO, has to review how this whole section is being implemented within a year.
So an independent look from the GAO. Congress is definitely keeping tabs.
These oversight parts are pretty standard, but important for accountability, making sure the group stays focused on its mandate.
There's also something about research and development.
Within a year, the secretary, working with this new director and the science and technology undersecretary, is supposed to look into new tech and techniques.
To help with these specific threats. Like what?
Could be anything, really. Maybe better AI for threat detection, more secure comms, new ways to track illicit money flows. The idea is to innovate and stay ahead.
So it's not just about current problems, but looking forward to.
Seems so. Recognizing that threats evolve, so defenses have to evolve too. Investing in R&D is part of that.
Now, a really critical point seems to be the language around rights and liberties.
Absolutely crucial. The Act explicitly says all activities must respect the Constitution, privacy rights, civil liberties.
And it even singles out free speech for U.S. persons, saying this act can't infringe on lawful free speech.
That's a vital safeguard. Putting those boundaries clearly in the legislative text is important when you're talking about security measures.
And finally, this isn't forever, is it? There's an end date.
Right. It's a sunset clause. The working group terminates 7 years after it's established.
Which suggests maybe they see this as a focused effort for a specific period, not a permanent new structure.
Could be. Sunset clauses force a reevaluation down the line. Does this still need to exist? Is it still effective? It prevents things from just continuing indefinitely without review.
Okay, and quickly, definitions. They define things like which congressional committees get the reports.
Lists the specific House and Senate committees.
Defines fusion center, intelligence community, using existing legal definitions mostly.
Yeah, standard practice for legal clarity. Avoids ambiguity. Using established definitions ensures consistency with other laws.
And they define United States persons too, referencing an older Defense Act. That seems relevant for the privacy stuff we talked about.
Very relevant. Knowing exactly who falls under that definition impacts how those privacy and civil liberties protections are applied.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up. The SHIELD Against CCP Act creates this DHS working group. Its job is basically to assess and improve how the U.S. counters specific threats perceived to come from the Chinese Communist Party.
Right, covering everything from immigration, system exploitation, and cyber attacks to dodgy economic practices and fentanyl trafficking.
They look at current efforts, find gaps, try to improve coordination, share info better, and report regularly to Congress.
And all under oversight with built-in privacy protections and a 7-year time limit.
It's definitely a multi-pronged approach they're outlining here.
It really reflects how interconnected these issues are. Now, border security, economic security, cyber security, public health even.
And those oversight mechanisms, the transparency with the unclassified reports, the GAO review, they seem intended to keep it focused and accountable.
Which leads to a big question, really, for you listening. As this group gets to work, how do you strike that balance? The balance between tackling what are seen as serious national security threats and, protecting fundamental civil liberties and privacy.
That's always the tension, isn't it?
It is, and what might be the longer-term effects, maybe unforeseen consequences of having this very specific focus within DHS over the next 7 years. Definitely something to think about as we wrap up this deep dive.